Yes, indeed. God bless Nigeria and all Nigerians. If you're just joining us, you're watching AM Chat. Today is Thursday, where we talk politics. Before the break, I did tell you that we're bringing two for one to you today on the show. I told you I have special guests in the house. There's one sitting right beside me this morning. We want to take a look at a very important state in Nigeria. We want to take a look at democracy at play. We want to take a look about on service to the people. And this morning, we're taking a look on Osun State, nexus between infrastructure and economic development in Osun State. Now, Osun State was created in 1991, and presently the governor of the state is Ogbeni Aregbesola. I particularly love that name. And of course, we have about 4.5 million people, according to latest statistics, in the state. And of course, we all know that Osun State is the state of virtue. Our guest this morning to help us understand the nexus between infrastructure and economic development in Osun State this morning is Honorable Babatunde Olatunji. He is the chairman, House Committee on Industry, Commerce, Cooperative and Empowerment. I have to take that again. He is the chairman, House Committee on Industry, Commerce, Cooperative and Empowerment. He is from the Ifo North State Constituency, State of Osun House of Assembly. He's right here, Honorable Babatunde Olatunji. Good morning.
Good morning.
That's a mouthful. I tell you, it's a mouthful. Osun State. Tell us about your state.
Well, in addition to what you talked about, my state, a state at 26 years old with about 4.5 million people, is also a state that is known for the good virtue of its people. We refer to as that is one state that has tried to look at how we can come up with ingenious approach to governance. And what I mean is that, if you want to look at what accrued to us from the center in terms of the federalism that we have, when you look at our resources, Osun State has almost been the bottom 5 in the country. So which means not less than 30 states earn more than Osun from the center. And that has been the trend over the years. But the new administration feels that we cannot continue this way. We need to, of course, change the model. And so we try to see how we can diversify, how we can lay a foundation for sustainable development. And one of the key things that we have identified is infrastructure. And the state has been in the news so well for its massive investment in infrastructure. And we have been able to leverage on the leader that we have to make sure that we open up the opportunity. It's no longer fashionable for people to keep saying Osun State is an agrarian state, Osun State is a civil service state, 4.5 million people, and then all you want to say about them is they're agrarian. That is what our forefathers were known for. 4.5 million people, and all you want to say that they're civil servants in the state. I mean, even in the state capacity cannot even take 55% of the entire population. So we feel that that is the model that will not work. And except we come up with a radical approach, something out of the box. We don't even need box to think in. We have to throw away the box and think straight and see how we can, of course, add value and lay foundation such that even the generation that is coming behind us will know that, of course, something different has been. And that is one of the hallmark of this administration in his last year. And I try to relate it this way. If my father, if my late grandfather, willed let me say a 6 face me I face you apartment for me in the market square in the early 1950s. I'm sure it's going to be one of the things we talk about as at that time. And then the entire 6 rooms, we make use of a pit latrine, some meters away, and that's and then in the 21st century, and I'm still laying claim to that same structure that my father handed over to me, unpainted roof, thatched roof, everybody using the same latrine. I'm sure my father in the grave will not be smiling at me that I had it value. And so if this administration inherited a state that, of course, people will say is agrarian, is civil servant, and we know it's not sustainable, how do we now leverage on what we have?
How do you now leverage is the question we're asking. What is your plan to leverage on what you have?
The plan,
what is the dream you have for Osun State?
Of course. The dream, which, of course, we begin to see materialize, is how do we now put up the infrastructure to make this happen? one infrastructure deficit is one of the greatest impediments to development in Africa. Not only Africa, Nigeria is equally not spared. The World Bank says that Africa has infrastructure deficit of about $93 billion annually. And then you have to keep spending like $3 billion, even up to 2020, for us to be able to catch up with other parts of the world. And that is why, even with Africa population of over 1 billion people, our entire GDP in 2016 is just a little over $1 trillion. And then you have South Korea, 50 million people doing the same GDP in terms of productivity. And then you have a country like Germany, about 90 million people having a GDP of 3.46 trillion according to World Bank. Then how do you now say 90 million people more productive by 1 billion people? One thing that is different, one thing that's standard is infrastructure, and that's the foundation for every development. And that's one thing Osun has been able to do in the last 7 years of this administration. A lot of people felt it was too ambitious. A lot of people, oh, that was a radical approach to governance. But I tell you, a radical problem deserves a radical approach. The good news is that Osun State did not, invest on consumption. The trend in Africa is that if you look at our country's, debt portfolio, for instance, we discovered that until very recently, all we have borrowed to do are to spend on consumptions. We borrow money to pay salaries. We borrow money on to meet up subsidy requirements. And that's why what you subsidized yesterday will not count for you today, because it's daily thing. But what we have done in Osun is to invest massively in infrastructure, in roads, in good schools, and of course that has begun to trickle.
Honorable Latinji, you talk about investment in infrastructure, and I want to believe that this one alone can attract FDI, foreign direct investment, into the state. Will you tell us how many have we been able to attract? Because when you have investment, you have infrastructure in place, certainly we're going to create more job for unemployment. We're going to create wealth for people. And when you create wealth for people, certainly the living standard will be normal, and people will appreciate living in Osun State. Can you lead us to that?
Well, foreign direct investment.
Looking at where we come from as a state, we can't, until about 2010, 2011, we can't even point at a medium-scale industry in my state. I'm not even talking of the large ones. Even the ones that were supposed to be large were moribund. You know what the government had. So what has happened significantly? Between 2010 and now, we've seen influx of a number of medium and, I would say we only have one or two large-scale industry, because when you're talking about large, you say the size. But again, we must know that the informal sector in any developing economy will not take less than 70 to 75%. Even in Nigeria, the medium, the small, and micro-scale enterprise, it constitutes about 70% of the entire business zone. And then looking at our population and our climb, we feel that one of the best way we can begin to impact and add value to people is that there must be an enabling environment for that man, for that graduate, for that semi-skilled person to be able to, in his own way, create jobs, be self-sustaining, so that it will no longer be story that except you are employed by either the state or the local government or federal government, you cannot survive. And that's one of the things we will. So now, for instance, we have two steel manufacturing companies that came to Osun in the last 7 years, and we've never had the only one we had was the Osogbo Steel Rolling Mill, which was privatized and sold off when it wasn't functional. Yeah. But these are private investment. We have a large brewery, which is one of the top breweries in Nigeria. It has been there for so long, but it was moribund. But when also the investors could see that this new government seems to have focused on development, and you can see what government itself is doing, that attracted them. And over $200 million in terms of investment has gone to that brewery. It's quoted on the stock exchange, and it's doing very fine now. In addition to that, is also the fact that we also begin to see the state itself has, for instance, a cocoa processing industry that has been there for decades. It stopped working a decade ago. It wasn't working. Everything was collapsed. The administration came here and looked at how can we revive this, and what were we able to do. Because of the government approach to development, it was able to attract a foreign investor who now come in with their funds, with their expertise, and we are running the cocoa processing industry in addition to a whole other micro and small business that begin to spring up in that place. I will shock you. Until some 6, 10, 9 years ago, even the state capital, you cannot point at 2 functional eatery.
In Osun State.
Yes.
So what's the story now?
But if you get there today, I'm sure the story is different. Now we are home to a good number of the known brands that you have.
What
That's
about the
tell you
agricultural
as
sector?
little.
Because we are talking about diversifying. What are you doing on agriculture?
Oh, in the area of agriculture, for instance, the state has 9 agric farm settlements.
Okay.
Over the years. And when this administration was going to come in 2010, those farm settlements were moribund. They were largely abandoned, overtaken by weeds. And one of the reasons is because agriculture without basic facility and infrastructure will not work. How do I invest in planting? And when it is time for me to harvest and evacuate to the market, there are no good roads to get there. And so people were discouraged. As at that time, if you are interested in farming in Osun, you go to the Ministry of Agric, you can apply for land up to 10 hectares. It will be given to you. To encourage. People were not interested. But I tell you today, the farm settlement had gone so, people are taking it up so much that even last year we have to come up with a bill in the House of Assembly to establish what we call agric farm land holding, a farm bank. And now we're talking to communities to say, let government lease your land to the government. Okay. Let us unlease to our people. And that's what is going on in Osun now. People are coming, and we are even saying that, well, we can no longer afford to give anybody 10 hectares of land anymore. What we are doing
a lot
now,
of people are asking
a whole lot of people, because the government has succeeded in building roads, constructing roads to all the major farm centers, and in addition, even where there are no asphalt on some of those roads, we are able to stabilize the road because we have a partnership with the World Bank and the French Development Bank to come up. We call it a rural asset mobility program, and with that, in conjunction with other things, over 1,000 kilometers of roads has been put into state in Osun.
If you're just joining us, our guest this morning is Honorable Babatunde Olatunji. Is the Chairman House Committee on the Industry, Commerce, Cooperative and Empowerment, is from Ife North State constituency of Osun State. Of course, we've been talking about nexus between infrastructure and economic development. Now, I want to ask, solid minerals in Osun State, how have you been able to earn from that particular sector?
I thank you for that question. That is one area of concern to not only the state of Osun, but every state in Nigeria. And I just talked about it yesterday. This the constitutional constraint to accessing the mineral resources in the state needs to be removed. I mean, I don't think is fashionable, except for the oil producing states who are lucky today to get 13% derivation in addition to what they get from and some of them, what they even get from derivation is more than what some of our states will even get a month. That of course we can say they're getting better. What happens to the coal in Enugu? What is happening to my state, for instance? We have not less than 5 mineral resources in commercial quantity. I'm saying commercial quantity. One major one, the state of Osun is one of the states with the largest gold deposit in Nigeria. If you go to Atakumosa East, Atakumosa West local government, that is largely what we have there. In fact, estimate given to us shows that we have $5 billion, not less than $5 billion worth of gold in that state. But today, the state cannot even access it. And because it doesn't belong to us by the Constitution. Even if oil or gold is discovered in your father's background, you cannot say this is my father's background. And then what we are saying is this: let this impediment be removed by the federal government. Let it be that states can also, go into exploitation of some of this, and let there be sharing and remaining, and something can go to the center. With this, it's going to be more attractive to bringing people on board, and so in that area we've been having challenges, but of course we are positioned. And we're only waiting for that opportunity to go and begin to.
Okay, we don't have enough time, but let us give him the opportunity. Okay. Give him that opportunity, since we've been told to round up. Let us give him the opportunity to look right into that camera. That's his camera, right? And say something about your state and your expectation as people are watching. It's a great opportunity. That's your camera there.
Well, to the good people of Nigeria and wherever they're watching us all over the world, the state of Osun is that state to watch out for in terms of our approach to governance is ingenious, is creative. We're looking at how do we add value to governance and to the life of our people. if Osun State were to be a country, it's going to be bigger than not less than 100 countries of the world, because they are not less than 100 countries, there are less than 4.5 million people. And we see this as our asset. And we can begin to see that now that the economy of the state is challenged, we have been able to prove and see how some other sectors can come to bail us out, in addition to whatever will come from the center. So we have been able to open up the space for people who wants to come and invest. The conditions precedent to investment is very right. The cost of doing business in Osun is pretty low, and that's an advantage that people have discovered. Power, for instance, is relatively stable. You can be sure of 20 hours electricity supply in the state of Osun, because that is where the national grid is stepped down in Osogbo. And all of this in addition to security, because of course Osun has been adjudged as one of the safest states in the country for a consecutive period of time. And also you want to look at already availability of ready hands that are skilled, because we have one of the highest concentration of tertiary education institutions in Nigeria, about 8 universities, 8 colleges. So when we are talking about Osun, we are talking about a state that is positioned, that is open to partner with people who are interested in doing genuine business, and of course we're looking at a situation where we can support the investment to grow. And we think that people are beginning to see these opportunities. We are beginning to see how people are coming on board. Of course, we are going through times now as a nation, and of course we know that we can only come out of it stronger, and government is set to catalyze development in all sectors of the economy.
All right, we want to thank you, Honorable, for coming on the show this morning. If you're just joining us, you've missed all of that. But we want to thank our guest, Honorable Babatunde Olatunji, Ife North State Constituency of Osun House of Assembly. He is the Chairman, House Committee on Industry, Commerce, Cooperative and Empowerment. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
We do hope to see you more often
anytime
in the future.
I'm available. Thank you so much. A pleasure.
Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have more for you. Our next topic on the show is the role of media in nation building. When we return, stay with us.
Electoral constraint builds and breeds insecurity, as it is often characterized by loss of lives and property, as it is the case in the northern part of Nigeria. Over 50,000 people have been killed, thousands displaced, properties worth billions of naira burnt, looted or destroyed. In addition to insecurity, there are attendant costs like increased security votes and the resources spent on repairs of damaged infrastructure. These resources could have been used or better spent on human and social development, and such trends adversely affect the social and economic well-being of individuals and the country in general. Acts of electoral violence are likely to result in hostile goals, like the desire for revenge in political opponents, which could lead to conflict escalation. This perhaps explains why almost all the political parties are involved in violence. Electoral violence jeopardizes development, social integration, and robs individuals of their psychological and emotional stability. Electoral violence manifests in acrimony, assault, assassination, intimidation, harassment, maiming, and killing consequently. This affects the existing social relationship in the society. It is an ill wind of social phenomenon which blows no one any good. In its aftermath, both its perpetrators and victims are losers. There is no substitute to electoral violence without bitterness. The call for bulletproof cars, armored personal carriers, the increase in the number of security agents as escorts in convoy of our political office holders, bank executives, traditional rulers, senior police officers, etc., cannot be mistaken to be security, but rather it is a great sign of insecurity in our nation, Nigeria. Due to this violence, build insecurity reasons in individuals who have the money or means tend to leave the country. But however, the issues of security is a collective responsibility. People, individuals running can stay and help in any way they can. Good governance and non-violence remain a anchor to development and security in Nigeria.
Yes, welcome back once again. It is still AM Chat, and we're moving straight on now to the next topic for today. And I did tell you that our topic is the role of the media in nation building. And to help us dissect that topic, my guest is already seated right here. He is Mr. Ayo Oyoze Baje. He is the president, GPAAN. Now, what that stands for is the Guild of Public Affairs Analysts of Nigeria. And also, he is a former editor, editorial page editor of the Daily Times newspaper, and of course, a member of the editorial board, the Independent newspaper. He is right here sitting with me. Thanks for joining us on the show this morning.
It's a great pleasure.
So, as a journalist and a media person, it is important for us to begin to look at this particular topic as it affects us as a people. A lot of events have come up in time past, a lot of events are still coming up. We're talking about insecurity right now, which seem to be what we're facing presently in the country. It is not easy. And of course, most times from insecurity to insurgency, to governance, to the judiciary, just name it, every facet of society. The media sometimes have been indicted in their reportage of happenings in the country. A lot of people say the media has been bought. Some say, no, we're doing the right thing. Some say this and some say that. But we want to find out this morning the role of the media. What should be the stance of the media in nation building as it relates to events as they unfold in our country?
Let me thank you very much. I consider it an honor to be invited, and also thinking about this thematically relevant topic, the role of the media in nation building. It's auspicious. If we go back in time, right from the Clifford Constitution of 1922, through that of Richard, 1946, through the Macpherson, down to the Independent and Republican Constitution, then to the 1999 Constitution as amended, the role of the media has always been spelled out clearly. For instance, Chapter 2, Section 22 of the Constitution that we practice now states clearly that the media, which we're talking about the press, we're talking about radio, television, and related agencies or institutions. The role of the media is to hold the government accountable to the people. That is one. Secondly, the media is the watchdog to curtail and curb the excesses of those in government. It is stated there. It's crystal clear. The media also, and this is very, very important, is to ensure that the politicians keep to their promises to the people. So all we are talking about is about the people's interests, their dreams, their desires, their aspirations, and we are looking at a situation whereby we have government that is responsible to the people in such a way that what we call the Human Development Index of the people is correlated with the art of governance. You know, access to the basic things of life, access to, you know, quality food, access to, you know, education, access to, you know, clean, safe water, access, you know, to infrastructural, you know, structures that will advance economic growth and development. So, in looking at all this, we also look at the fact that the three arms of government, you have the executive, the legislature, and then you have the judiciary. They are more or less protected under the Constitution. But it will interest you that more or less for those that you know, normally come hard on the media practitioners, they don't know that we are not as protected as the other three arms of government. Yet the media is so important that you are regarded as the fourth estate of the realm. You gather information, you disseminate this information, you enlighten people, you entertain people,